In the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer. Amen. Please be seated. Well, Merry Christmas. Welcome. So as I was preparing to write this sermon, I asked my wife what I should preach on. It's Christmas Day, after all. It's not like she would have needed to read the gospel passage ahead of time to know what we are dealing with. And she said something curious. You should preach about the paradox of Christmas. Being a priest and a bit of a nerd, I assumed that she had a theological point to make. Something about the paradox of omniscient, omnipotent God born in the form of an infant. But my wife was making a more astute, more practical, more pastoral point. She was talking about the paradox of modern Christmas, the season, and how we celebrate it. But Christmas is supposed to be joyful and merry, yet we find ourselves so stressed by the burdens of shopping, cooking, cleaning, traveling, that by the time Christmas arrives, we're limping to the finish line. I was actually at my chiropractor's office this past Thursday for a regular adjustment, and let me assure you, that's not a metaphor. Christmas is supposed to be about spending time with family and loved ones, yet many of us feel lonelier this time of year than any other. There are those mourning the death of someone close to them, those struggling with the pain and trauma of familial estrangement, those muddling through as best as possible with irksome, overwhelming family dynamics. And this season magnifies all of it. Christmas is supposed to be about generosity and giving, yet it is a time of rampant consumerism and grasping. Black Friday and the pursuit of deals kicks off the season, but for almost an entire month beforehand, advertisements remind us of Christmas's special place in the heart of American corporations. For many people, Christmas has more to do with Santa Claus and Coca-Cola than with the birth of the Christ child 2,000 years ago. And if you think the church is spared from this chaos and mania, you were probably not in our parking lot at 4:55 p.m. yesterday. Peace and goodwill toward men will only get you so far when you're trying to find a parking place. This most sacred of seasons has been swallowed whole by modern culture. Yet, in that pessimism are the seeds of what this holiday is truly about. No matter how dark the night, no matter how hopeless our prospects, no matter how terrifying our future, no matter how broken our past, God is with us. The paradox of Christmas is that God chose to become human despite our many woes. We did not earn it. We did not deserve it. And yet God lived among us. God knows us intimately. And the greatest of gifts, God came in the form of a baby. Because what is more hopeful than a baby? Their smiles, their giggles, their joy, their love is infectious. I grew up in New York City, and it can be caricatured as a hard, cruel place. But that was never my experience of my hometown. Perhaps I'm a bit of a naive optimist, but I always felt that New York is just particular about boundaries. With so many people packed in near each other, New Yorkers are mindful of the little space that they have and careful to maintain their own boundaries and respect others. But watch what happens when a particularly sociable baby enters a subway car and decides that everyone in there is her new best friend. Watch those boundaries come down for just a moment. Hearts melt, joy spreads, all because of that baby's unadulterated love. Babies are also a sign of hope because they are a reminder that there is something more, that a future will exist, that there is a reason to believe in humanity. I must admit a real impatience with people who insist that they won't have children because the world is just too awful, too precarious to procreate. Global instability, climate change, overpopulation, natural degradation, civil strife, and an avalanche of technological changes too rapid and unsettling to predict are unfair burdens to place on the next generation. This, of course, is true. But it misses a key point of why people choose to become parents in the first place. I don't know many parents who don't worry about the future. In fact, it's been my experience that fatherhood has made me far more anxious about global instability, climate change, overpopulation, natural degradation, etc., than ever before. I'm not a parent because I'm ignorant of those worries. I'm a parent in spite of them. In spite of all the reasons not to have hope, I do. Because how could I not? How could I look at my children and not have hope? I wonder if that's how God felt just before Christ was born. The history of God's relationship with God's people is one of bitterness, sorrow, and disappointment. Again and again, God reaches out to God's people with poems, prophets, and laws, and again, God's people fall short. Until finally, as we know the story, God sent Jesus in spite of it all. In spite of all the reasons not to have hope, God did. And we are recipients of that hope. Born in a stable 2,000 years ago. Thanks be to God. Amen.